peeps, welcome back to the newest episode of Just Ask the G.O.A.T with yours truly, Neira the G.O.A.T. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. If you're a returning guest, what's down, cousin? I'm so happy that you're back. Let's get into this week's episode.
Hey peeps, it's your favorite manifesting cousin Neira, aka Neira the G.O.A.T, and welcome back to another episode of the Just Ask the G.O.A.T podcast, a safe space where I share my tips, tricks, and ratchet life experiences as a full-time creative entrepreneur. Welcome back. Okay, so I'm so happy to be back. Don't worry about where I've been at, just know that I'm here now. That's all that matters. Maybe we'll get into it on another episode. But I'm so happy to be back. And earlier today, I happened to be on a call with a brand that I've been working with. And I forget the name of the team, but it was through a cohort, a small business cohort that this brand is a part of, that they got to have some one-on-one meetings with Target. For potentially being able to get into retail, which is a super exciting endeavor. And I was on a call today on behalf of the brand, and they were discussing packaging. And I was giving this brand some suggestions based on my previous work experience, right? And it reminded me of whenever I worked for a previous company and we were preparing to go into retail our first time. And the first time we actually got an opportunity to present the brand to Target, and how we were absolutely unprepared. I feel like unprepared is like an understatement of just how unprepared we were. And so this podcast episode is going to be entitled Preparing for Increase. So many times as entrepreneurs, as creatives, as content creators, we are always thinking about what's next. We're always thinking about where it is that we want to go, how many followers we want to have, how many views we want to have, how many dollars in sales we want to have, how many units we want to move, what is the next thing, where we're trying to go. But a lot of times we're never quite really doing the work to put ourselves in positions to be prepared for the increase that we're desiring and asking for. And this goes beyond just in the creative realm or the realm of entrepreneurship. This can happen in our personal lives as it relates to relationships or buying a home. But for the nature of the podcast, I want to keep it as it relates to creativity and business. So we're always thinking about what we want next, the next place we want to go, the next milestone we want to reach, the next dollar amount we want to make. And we are not always completely honest and prepared for the increase we're asking for. So let's take it back to 2018. I had just started working for this company. I had joined the marketing team, and it was suggested by the sales director at that time that the new marketing team go on this trip to DC, and we were going to the ubiquitous hair expo. So if there are any hair care business owners or product creators that are listening to this, the ubiquitous hair care expo is something you may want to look into. And it was actually my first trade show type of experience ever that I had gone to, and we learned at that event that it wasn't necessarily the brand's target audience because it was an older demographic, but at this particular event there were buyers for Target. Now let's back up a little bit. Even though I had by the grace of God, campaigned myself into this position to be a part of this marketing team, I had never experienced anything like that before. I had never gone to school for marketing. All I had was grit, tenacity, a will to want to win, and all of the job experience I had up until that point. As you guys know, I done had like 30 jobs Most of them were in retail. Even with all of that, I do not think that I was by any means qualified to pitch a brand to Target, especially a brand that I had literally just got hired to work for maybe like a month or two before this. And I don't believe anybody else on the marketing team was quite prepared for an opportunity like that either. So we did our best. If any of the ladies are listening to this episode that actually used to be on the marketing team with me, y'all know where I'm about to go with this. So we had put together this presentation. We had no guidelines. We had no one who even could have told us, because even the sales director that suggested that we were the ones to pitch it, there was I don't know if he had ever pitched an independent brand into a retail partnership before. So there was no framework, there was no template that we knew to follow. We just put together what we could. We did not have any information that spoke to the sales. We did not have any information that spoke to our plan or proposal of once the brand got into this particular retailer, how we were going to promote it and sell it. We did not have bottles and packaging that was up to protocol that would match the shelving in retail or anything like that. They're called die lines on products. The logo was a little crooked. It didn't have a barcode on it. The ingredients probably weren't all the way correct. The SDS sheets, if anybody is into products and you hear me right now, you know what I'm talking about. The intricate details it takes to have one product ready, let alone an entire line, and we're trying to pitch it in. And I didn't even know at the time that there are meetings when you're trying to get into retail called line reviews. Didn't even know it was called a line review. We ain't had a line. We ain't had shit to review. And so we ended up totally bombing the presentation, totally bombing it. It was a hot ass mess. And Target was just like, absolutely no. So from there, the rest of the ladies that were on the marketing team with me ended up not staying with me, but I ended up staying with the company. And a year after that, we had a meeting to get into Target, and we were able to get into Target. And I believe when we first got into Target, we were granted like 260, 280 stores, something like that initially. And when I think about the amount of preparation that still needed to happen from the moment where we failed that presentation to the moment when they told us that they wanted us to have us in retail, all I could do was laugh and shake my head, because like I said at the beginning of the podcast, so many times we are so excited, and it's like we can see the vision, we can see where God is trying to show us where the business is going to go, where the idea is going to go. But so many times we get wrapped up in the dreaminess of it that we don't realize there is a lot of work and a lot of preparation that has to go into preparing ourselves for the increase that we're looking for, preparing ourselves for the success that we're looking for. So real quickly, because this podcast won't be too long, I want to go into how do you prepare yourself for success? How do you prepare yourself for the increase? And I'm just going to share something with you guys that is not new. I'm sure any success book that you read or have already read, or any corporate environment that you've been in, has told you the importance of SMART goals. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And so the S in SMART goals is about being specific. So how specific are you really being? What needs to be accomplished with this goal? Why do you want the increase? Why do you desire this certain success? Why do you desire this certain outcome? And what steps actually need to be taken to achieve it? Like, it's really easy for us to say, oh, I have this great idea. I want to come out with this t-shirt line. For instance, and no shade to my friend, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day who is a former fighter. And he mentioned that he wanted to put together um, like an ebook, a template for other people that are interested. Because when he's in the gym, even though he doesn't fight anymore, when he's in the gym, people ask him about his workout routine. And I said, okay, that's a great idea, but if you're not fighting anymore and you just come out with an ebook, who's gonna really buy it? Like, if you aren't, if you haven't already positioned yourself to be the authority in a certain industry, and what I mean by positioning yourself to be in an authority in an industry is if you haven't put together content of your previous fights, or you're not showing up on social media as a person that works out. Hell, if you don't even like recording yourself, like, how is it, do you think, that you are going to sell enough ebooks or enough whatever it is that you're trying to sell in order for you to actually make a profit, for you to see the increase that you're actually looking for? And I said, well, I think that that's a great idea, because I do believe that everybody that has a passion, everybody that has experience, everybody that has a business, even if it's a service-based business, from your knowledge, you can create a product to sell. And there are people that will be willing to buy that product. But when it comes to working out and fitness, a lot of the times people are visual. And people also don't like to damn read. They need to first see the product. They need to first see you. How do I even know I want to buy anything from you if I can't trust you? So, what steps need to really be taken to achieve whatever your goal is? A lot of times we say, oh, I want to monetize my social media, and we don't even post for 30 to 60 days. And we're wondering why the engagement has dropped. We're wondering why nobody buys the things that we put out, and you still have to show up. So the S in SMART is about being specific. The M in SMART goals stands for measurable. Is this goal measurable? How can I track it? How can I make benchmarks to see, okay, if I've been posting regularly on my social media for the last 30 days, I need to be able to go into my business insights and see what type of content is my audience engaging in the most. Do they like when I make videos that are funny yet educational? Do they prefer just watching something quick that is to a trending sound? Do they like when I get on live and I do questions and answers? Have I really been paying attention to my numbers week over week? If I'm sending out email marketing, what is my open rate? What is my click-through rate? Am I paying attention to the customer buying path on my website? So I know, well, what are they clicking on? What are they bouncing from? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves, because a lot of the time, sometimes we feel like, or if we're not getting the result from actions that we're taking, then we feel like we need to just reinvent the whole wheel. We have to go back to those actions, and we just need to tweak them a little bit to get the desired goal and the desired increase that we're looking for. The next letter in the SMART goal acronym is A. Is it achievable? You have to sit down and really be realistic with yourself. And I'm just going to be completely transparent with you guys right now. When it comes to all of the life changes, and like I said, I might go over it in another podcast or two, but with all of the life changes that have happened for me, specifically in the last 2 years of my life, I've done a lot of moving, guys. A lot of packing, unpacking, moving from here, moving from there, a lot of pivoting. And I have these goals of how I want my podcast to look, how I want my content to look, how I want my life to look. And if I'm going to be realistic, I am the queen of being unrealistic. If you ask any of my friends, I'm very delulu. And I can often over-romanticize an idea, being realistic with how long it may take me to take that action. And so, is your goal really achievable? You know, even whenever I moved to Georgia, I had unrealistic and unachievable ideas of what I thought moving my entire life to another state would look like. And I thought that I would just be able to move and pick up and just do everything like I was already doing it in Louisiana. But the reality is, it takes your psyche a while to catch up to a major move. You got to realize where the nearest gas stations are, where the nearest Walmart is, and you are getting acclimated to this new space. All of the things that you didn't account for. Because, listen, there is always going to be something that you don't know. And that thing that you don't know is more than likely always going to take you more time than you realize. The R in SMART is for relevant. Why are you setting the goal that you're setting? Let's say, for instance, you have an app, right? And you know that apps tend to drive huge customer loyalty, or you have like a loyalty rewards program for your company, and you know that that tends to drive customer loyalty, and overall it is going to drive the number of users of that app, or it's going to drive the amount of customers that actually visit your website through targeted social media campaigns or targeted email marketing. And it's going to continue to grow the amount of users for the app, or continue to grow the amount of people on your email subscription list, which will ultimately increase the profitability of the company. So we want to make sure that our goals are relevant. What is the big picture? We don't want to be doing things today that really won't matter tomorrow. I have been meeting um, over the last couple of years as a creative entrepreneur and consultant for small businesses. I talk to a lot of them, and a lot of them are just doing shit that doesn't even matter. Like, you're so concerned about the most nitpicky things when it doesn't matter. Like, I remember I remember using the example, the previous company that I worked for, everybody knew, or everybody was anticipating what the next big piece of content was going to be, coming from that brand. And by the time I left, content was costing us into the six figures, right? But when that brand first started off, they were making like shitty videos from their iPhone and ugly costumes from Party City. And so sometimes I listen to brands and they are like, oh, I need a graphic designer for this, or I need to go and buy this kind of camera, or content creators that feel like I need to have my setup to look like this, when all you actually have to do is start. Starting is more relevant to your overall goal than being so nitpicky about the fine details that really don't fucking matter. I always say, and I'm not even going to get on a tangent, but I'm going to say this: persistence and consistency wins. There are a lot of talented rappers, but the reason nobody knows who they are, but we know other not so talented rappers, is because the not so talented rappers are the ones that didn't quit. The not so talented rappers are not so talented entertainers are the ones that didn't overthink it, that just kept on showing up, even when they didn't have it all together, even when they didn't know what they were doing, even though they know they can't fucking sing and they can't rap. They kept showing up. Whereas there are a lot of you that are listening to this podcast, and myself included, sitting on the gifts that you're naturally good at because you're waiting for everything to be perfect. And that's just not realistic. So again, the R in SMART goals is relevant. Is this relevant to the overall picture? Is it relevant to why I'm doing what I'm doing, and the overall reason of why I want to increase the business? And is it in alignment with me preparing myself for the increase that I'm looking for? And the last letter in the SMART goals is T, which is time bound. And this is to properly measure success, making sure that you and your team or anybody else around you is on the same page as it relates to the timeline of how you want to do things. SMART goals should always have time related parameters built into them so you can stay on track with the designated time frame of when you want your goal to be complete. So if for whatever reason you have a certain amount of sales that you want to make by the end of, we're getting ready to close out the second quarter of the year, before you know it, have my goals been in alignment for me to reach the number that I set in mind at the top of the second quarter? And if not, how do I pivot? It's so important to make sure that you put a time frame on your goals. Your date, putting a date on your goals gives you a target. And even for whatever reason, if you don't meet that specific date, it still gives you an opportunity of how you can improve. Or it allows you to go back to being a little bit more realistic on whether or not that specific time frame for that particular goal is actually achievable. But if you don't put a time frame on it, then all of these other questions and variables do not get answered. That is just the brunt of it, the quick of it, the gist of it. It is so important that we are remembering that proper preparation prevents poor performance. So prepare properly and make those goals SMART, and prepare yourself for the success and the increase that you and I both know you deserve. Thank you for listening.
Hey peeps, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. I hope that you were able to find a jewel that you can keep with you every day, or put it in your back pocket for a later date. If there are any topics that you'd like for me to discuss on the podcast, please feel free to shoot me an email to Neira the G.O.A.T @gmail.com. Remember to like this episode, share it with a friend, leave a comment, give it a rating, whatever floats your boat. Go forth, be great. Always remember, what you're seeking is seeking you too, and everything that you need is already within you. So go within.